What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly Sports History for April 14th, 2025. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Monday edition of the podcast. Coming at you a little bit later. I'm off this week for spring break. The kids are off, so we might be more on a weekend schedule this week, just as we try to figure out what we're going to do each day. But we are here. Be sure to follow me on social media, Jimbo_Mont on Twitter and TikTok. On Instagram, @PhillyJimbo. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mont, and continue to spread the word as we grow this thing. Just a reminder, if you want to see some highlights, photos, clips, things like that of what we're talking about that day, all my social media has it, including Facebook and LinkedIn. So be sure to check that out. And we tend to have some good discussions over on Facebook as well. So be sure to hit me up over there if you haven't already. Back in the home studio today. Great weekend. Still navigating the sound. It never fails. Whenever I go away, I have issues with a day or two getting the sound. So if the sound is a little off, I do apologize. But let's get into it. And let's start with a recap of yesterday's question of the day. Now, the Phillies certainly helped this one out a little bit. But I asked you, are you watching the Masters? 73% of you said yes, you are. And if you didn't watch the Masters, boy, did you miss a great one. Might be the best one that I've ever seen. Back and forth, tons of drama. Rory walked away with it, but it was incredible. Must-see TV. So thank you, as always, for participating in the question of the day. We'll have another one here later in the show. But, man, it was a good one. And it was pretty cool, too. And I don't know if he only played on Saturday or whether he played on Saturday or Sunday. But Michael McDermott was the marker because there was an odd number of players that made the cut going into the weekend. So he played with Tom Kim on Saturday. Pretty cool. He's a Philly guy from St. Joe's. So there's your little... Always try to make it a Philly connection. So there's your Philly connection for the Masters. Speaking of those Phillies, this is one that you just want to forget. I started off flipping back and forth, and then, the Masters got interesting like almost immediately. Rory dropping 2 strokes on the first hole. It was just downhill. 7-0. They managed 3 hits. Zach Wheeler was not sharp. Marsh is terrible. There's not much to talk about this game because there wasn't much that happened. Some bonehead defensive plays, no hitting, and just a brutal one. The Phillies losing the Cardinals 7-0. Lots of question marks with this team. We'll get more into that as we continue through the spring since the Phils are the only game in town. But they're back at it tonight at home against the Giants. Taijuan Walker on the mound. Not necessarily who you want to be on the mound to kind of break through this little whatever you would call it, but he has been pitching well, hasn't given up a run this year, so maybe Taijuan can be the stopper tonight. Yikes. All right, graciously, the Sixers season is over. They lost last night to the Bulls, 122-102, officially putting the fork in what may be the most disappointing season in Sixers history. Certainly, they've lost more games in a season than they did, but just from start to finish, from the very beginning of this season till yesterday, it was a frustrating season. But it is over. We can finally focus our attention on the lottery, which is May 12th. So for the most part, every day between now and May 12th, we will do our official Tankathon check-in to see what pick the Sixers would get. Some of the numbers here, they're locked into the 5th spot in the lottery. So if everything kind of goes chalk and finishes the way it's supposed to, the Sixers will have the 5th pick in the draft. But what are the other numbers? So the official numbers, they have a 10.5% chance to get the first pick. They have a 42% chance to move up into the top 4, which I was impressed. That's a pretty high number to move up. And overall, 64% to keep their pick. So that would be a top 6 pick. So the odds are in the Sixers' favor. It just and with the NBA lottery, it's sort of a question mark. Nobody really understands the formula and whatever goes into the back end. Like I talked last week about wanting to just do the ping pong balls and doing it like the daily number on the lottery. But some people will say that it's somewhat fixed. And if you look at the teams in the top half of the lottery there, Sixers definitely are the biggest market. So if they want Cooper Flagg to go to a big market team, that would be the way to go. So we'll see how that plays out. But we will do a Tankathon lottery simulation every day officially. And so for our first official one, the Sixers got the number 1 pick. So far, even the unofficial ones over the weekend, they've actually been doing fairly well. But this is the first official one with everybody locked into their spots. Sixers got the number 1 pick. So you're saying there's a chance. But that does lead to today's question of the day. Whether or not they keep their pick, where they pick, that still remains to be seen. Do you trust this current regime to make the right pick? That I'm not so sure of. 267-495-8531. That'll get you into the Back to the Future voice and text line. Do you trust Daryl Morey and Elton Brand to make the right decision when it comes? I mean, there's a lot of Duke guys that are projected to go in the top 6. So team them up with Jarrett McCain. Elton Brand went to Duke. I mean, do they overthink it? Do they make the right choice? Or do they do something stupid? I mean, I would like to do a Tankathon simulation on whether or not Daryl Morey is going to do something stupid. But hit me up on the Back to the Future voice and text line or any of my social media. Do you trust the current regime to make the right decision when it comes to the Sixers draft? 267-495-8531. That's the Back to the Future voice and text line. Get that. Anything else Philly sports related off of your chest. Flyers lost in overtime yesterday to the Ottawa Senators. They're slowly just playing out their string. They're going to have a couple high draft picks themselves, 3 total in the first round. So here we are. We're looking forward to draft day and lottery day. But we'll have more Tankathon tomorrow. Be sure to check out my boys over at the Clashing Conferences podcast. Great things happening with their sports fan network. Go to clashingconferences.com to see what they have to offer, how you could get involved, and as well as check out their podcast wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. Again, Steven and the crew over there are doing great things. Lots of fun whenever they all get together. And then, of course, Philly Goat. We're talking about the Rocks glasses. All kinds of new shirts coming out. They got you covered. Just go check out the new stuff they have on Philly Goat. Get ready for spring. Phillies gear. You want to get ready for the Sixers gear. We talked about the F around and find out with the PH. They have a Cruck around and find out, which is amazing. Absolutely amazing. So go to Philly Goat. Use that promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. That's phillygoat.com. Promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. All right, today we're going to stick with a Flyers theme in honor of them running down the season or playing out the season, I should say. And we are going to go back all the way to the year 2000. And on this day in 2000, Flyers beat the Buffalo Sabres 2-1 to go up 2-0 in their first round playoff series. Flyers had already won game 1 3-2, but Dominik Hasek, the goalie for the Sabres, was just playing lights out and basically just standing on his head during game 2 and even for the most part in game 1. Flyers were down 1-0 at the end of the first period. Early in the second, John LeClair scored a power play goal to tie it. However, it appeared that the puck went through the side of the net. And replays, specifically ESPN's NetCam, showed that it did in fact go through the side of the net, so it shouldn't have been a goal. However, ESPN's NetCam was not a part of the official replay technology that the NHL was using for this game. So the goal counted. And then after play resumed, everybody realized and could see that the puck went through the net. However, because play had already resumed, the NHL rules forbid the play to be reviewed again once play starts. You just kind of move on. So play resumed. Eric Desjardins added a third period power play goal to give the Flyers the 2-1 win and the 2-0 series lead. They would go on to win that series 4-1, and that was a magical playoff run for the Flyers. That was when they went the 5 overtime game against the Penguins. They went to the Eastern Conference Finals, had the 3-1 lead that they blew. But it all started with some magic here on this day as John LeClair scored a goal that counted even though it went through the side of the net due to the technology not being suffice. What a way to lose a game if you're Buffalo. You got to feel bad about that too. Because it totally turned the tide not only of the game, but of the series. So on this day, back in 2000, Flyers beat the Sabres 2-1. 2 power play goals. One went through the side of the net and should not have counted. All right, today, our missing rings spotlight. And these guys are near and dear to my heart. And I'm going to keep them all together lumped in as one. But today's player spotlight with missing rings: Eric Allen, Reggie White, Seth Joyner, Clyde Simmons, and Jerome Brown. Probably the best guys on that gangrene defense. You have 2 Hall of Famers with Eric Allen and Reggie White. You have Seth Joyner, who probably should be in the Hall of Fame and likely will be the next big push to get in. You have Clyde Simmons, who's an Eagles legend, who's just on that next level of Hall of Very Good, top 3 in Eagles all time in sacks. And of course, Jerome Brown, whose career ended way too soon and was well on his way to becoming a Hall of Famer and likely one of the best players in league history. But 1991, I talk about it all the time. To me, there's no debate. That is the best defense ever put together. And this year's Eagles defense was pretty damn good. I don't think they hold a candle to that Eagles 91 defense. And that is not a disrespect to this year's Eagles team. It's just, and I might be wearing Kelly Green tinted glasses for this one. And that's okay. But I think that, to me, hands down, I will put that defense up against any defense in the history of the NFL. And I like my chances there. But that team, that core group of Eric Allen, Reggie White, Joyner, Simmons, and Brown, they had probably 2 legitimate, realistic shots to win a Super Bowl. The first came in 1988, and that was the Fog Bowl. I still feel as though if the fog didn't come in, the way that they were kind of just able to move the ball, I feel like they would have just kind of poured it on and ran away from the Bears in the second half. But we know the fog came in. And of all the 49ers teams in the 80s, I think that 1988 49ers team was probably not the strongest of the bunch. So what the Eagles, especially if they had the momentum going out there after beating the Bears, I think they would have gone out to San Francisco and beaten them. And at the time, basically, if you were an NFC team going to the Super Bowl, it was a foregone conclusion that you were going to win, just because during the 80s, there was just an era of dominance between the NFC and the AFC. So I think they would have beaten the Bengals in the Super Bowl as well. But the fog really screwed that up, and it's one that still gets me today. And then the other one was that 1991 team. And everybody says, oh, well, that defense was only good because they had to be. And I think you take the opposite approach with that. Could you imagine how good that defense could have been if they didn't have to be? And we look at the Eagles' defenses in 2017 when they won the Super Bowl and 2022 when they lost to the Chiefs. They weren't the best defenses. Yes, the 22 team would get a lot of pressure on the quarterback, but again, they always played with big leads. Same thing with 17. Could you imagine, like this 91 team, they were in a ton of close games. So yes, the pressure was on them, and they, for the most part, were able to rise to the pressure and keep the Eagles, who had crap at quarterback that year, Well, that was the year Randall blew out his knee. They had absolute crap. Guys literally off the street playing quarterback, and they were keeping games close. So you imagine if Randall's having a halfway decent year, not even a good year, how good that defense would have been if they would have been allowed to just go after the quarterback. That was the year. And I mean, in 88 or 89 and 90, they had okay shots, but I think 88 and 91, sort of the bookends on that Eagles defense, that was those were the two chances. And it's still amazing to me that they didn't win one. And I still blame Buddy Ryan if he just gave half a damn about offense. And I know everybody loves Buddy Ryan, but I think he ended up, now that we've won a couple Super Bowls and we're able to kind of look back on it more objectively, he cost them. As much as he built up those defense, if he just gave half a damn, they would have been fine. And I know everybody's down on Kotite because he was such a terrible head coach, but I think people sometimes tend to forget that he's the one that turned that offense around. And if it wasn't for Randall blowing out his knee, I think that was the year. But today's missing ring spotlight: Eric Allen, Reggie White, Seth Joyner, Clyde Simmons, and Jerome Brown. The gangrene Eagles defense came close, had some shots in the playoffs, just never were able to get over the top. But yeah, 88 and 91. And let's do a little bit of a bonus question of the day. Which one of those Eagles teams had the best chance to win the Super Bowl? Was it 1988 or 1999? I'm going 88. But what do you think? 267-495-8531. That'll get you in. On this day in 2000, Flyers beat the Buffalo Sabres 2-1 to take a 2-0 lead in their first round playoff series when John LeClair scored a goal that went through the side of the net. ESPN netcam footage showed that it did go through the net. However, it was not part of the official replay, and therefore the goal counted. We'll have more on the Sixers Tankathon. We'll have some fun. We'll have some highlights from the Phillies. We'll have more missing ring spotlight. And, of course, tomorrow is Tuesday, and it'll be time for some motivation/positivity. So be sure to tune in. But this has been This Day in Philly Sports History for April 14th, 2025. My name is Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Monday. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.